Well, welcome, Tony. The mention I made there that you know JD Vance, you've met him on a number of occasions. Surprise pick today, given he's very young and he's a first-term senator. What do you make of the man that you know, but also the man that we'll see now in this really important role?
He's a very, very smart guy. He's a genuine representative of the working class. Sure, he's done very well since his difficult youth, but he hasn't forgotten the communities that shaped him. So I think he's generational change. I think he's going to further energise the Republican Party, and I think he is going to really continue that shift that we've seen over the years of rich people voting more left, poor people voting more right. And that's not something that should worry Conservatives, because in the end, there are far more less well-off people than there are very well-off people. So I think it's been a very strong choice by President Trump. And
magnanimous, I'd have to say magnanimous, given that
he hasn't always been a Trump fan. I think Trump has shown a degree of magnanimity and a degree of far-sightedness in picking someone who is a couple of generations below him. And I think this is a welcome sign of renewal on the part of the Republicans and hopefully for the American system more generally.
I just spoke a moment ago to Joe Hockey, and he made some comments that I wanted to pull out and discuss with you, because it sort of mirrors comments you've made about politics here, particularly on the centre-right in Australia. Let's have a listen.
There is a deep policy divide between the Republicans and the Democrats. That is what defines American politics. And it's all of those things. The Republicans believe in lower tax, less regulation, greater focus on controlling the borders, better immigration, etc., etc. Whereas the Democrats are the opposite. And that is what is hardening up the base of both parties. The personalities of the candidates are just on top.
Now, I say hallelujah to that.
I respectfully disagree a little with Joe. I don't think that the Democrats' base is hardening. I think that their base is narrowing, because the Democrats in the United States, like Labor here and in Britain, notwithstanding the recent election, which I think was a bit of an aberration, more and more the Anglosphere left has identity and climate obsessions, which I think are ultimately anathema to decent working class people. On the other hand, I think that the base of the centre-right is broadening, and I think it's including more and more people who once upon a time would have been, if you like, tribally of the left, tribally Labor here. So I think Joe is only partly right. If I could also take issue with Joe on another point too, I mean, I just think there is something wrong with a system which is hostage to an old man's stubbornness. And I can't believe a credible political party would persist with someone who, regardless of his meritorious service over the years, and regardless of the current difficulty of change, is plainly past his prime. Let's face it, this guy is the leader of the free world. In effect, he's our president as well as America's president. And I just think it's incumbent on a political party that wants to be taken seriously to give the public a viable choice.
Because right now, Biden looks bigger than the Democrats.
That's right. And no political party can be owned by any individual. In the end, the country and the party have got to be more important than the individual. The individual has got to understand that it's the party and the country ultimately that come first, not your own ego, not your own ambition, not your own place in history.
What I liked about Joe's point, though, he talks about there's a big policy difference now in American politics.
And this is
that is a good thing, because you've often said the problem here with the Liberal Party, particularly at state level, and certainly under Malcolm, and to be fair, Scott Morrison, when he went kumbaya on net zero, is there was no contest. We had lurched so far to the left that it was basically, you know, two versions of the left putting themselves forward for office. Over there is a big bloody difference between the Republicans and the Democrats.
Correct. It was the left versus the very left. Now, you're right. While the Dems will go off with their climate and identity obsessions under Trump and Vance, economy and security. That'll be the big concerns of the Republicans. It means over time lower taxes, less regulation. It means over time much stronger armed forces. It means proper border control. They won't just talk about it, they'll get it done. So look, I think there is going to be a clear contest in the United States. As I'm pleased to say, under Peter Dutton, we have a very clear contest developing here in Australia.
All right, go back a few hats to when you were the Industrial Relations Minister for John Howard. You took on the CFMEU. I even recall John Setka suing you for defamation over comments you made about bad union behaviour. This has been an open secret for anyone in politics, the travails of this expose we've seen in recent days through the 9 newspapers. We've had 2 royal commissions, we've brought in 2 rounds of the ABCC, there's been some level of clean-up, and then it gets, thrown out by Labor and we revert back to this. Why we care about it as taxpayers is they are ripping off the system, and hard-working Victorians in particular, but Australians, are paying for this. And the Prime Minister and the Victorian Premier say, well, geez, this is all a surprise, we didn't know about it.
Exactly right. Look, our house prices are higher, our rents are higher because of the rorts, rackets and rip-offs that this union has perpetuated for decades. But yes, Liberal governments consistently try to restrain the lawlessness. Labor governments consistently turn a blind eye to the lawlessness.
But take the money.
Happy to take the money. Every year, $1 million in affiliation fees from the CFMEU. The CFMEU is the biggest block vote inside the Labor Party. I regret to say it, Peter, but effectively the Labor Party has been running a long-term protection racket for the most crooked union in the country. And that's why what we've seen recently, which is, if you like, through 60 Minutes, if you like, a royal commission with pictures, very powerful, very powerful. I think that this is not just a disaster for the union, a well-deserved disaster for the union, but it's an absolute crisis for the Labor Party. It's now the Premier and the Prime Minister who are on trial. Do they have the guts to rein in this union, which is behaved in an un-Australian way for decades?
Good to have your company, Tony Abbott. You're on fire tonight. Goodness me. We could have stayed there all night, couldn't we?